Hello. The Divine Code for November 22nd, pages 335 and 336. We are in the chapter, The Precepts Pertaining to a Fetus and to Eggs. Topic number 11. If a hand or foot of the fetus emerged from the mother while the mother is still alive, even if the limb remained outside the mother until the mother was slaughtered or died, is not subject to the rules of Abraham Hakai and is permitted, for it did not separate from the body of the fetus. Samexetic Eurodea 63:6. It is forbidden for a Jew because of the emerging limb has become treif, but it is not forbidden to a Gentile. So at this point, the animal is still considered a part of the mother. The mother is slaughtered, and the animal is still within the womb, and therefore if the leg of the calf is sticking out of cow, it would be considered part of the slaughtered cow, and it could be removed, even if the fetus is technically still alive. If, however, the limb that emerged was cut off while the mother was alive, regardless of whether the fetus was alive or already dead. So here we have a case where it could be a fetus that's dead, stillborn. It got strangled by the umbilical cord, whatever, and it's one of its hind legs is sticking out from the womb. If the cow is still alive, they can't just cut off the hind leg. Now they might do that just to try to get the animal out, get the dead fetus out, but it's considered part of the living animal. That's the cow, and therefore that would be a limb from a living animal, even if the fetus is dead, because the fetus is still considered part of the mother at that point. Or whether the mother was slaughtered or died while the fetus was alive, the severed limb is reckoned as Abraham Makai, and is forbidden to be eaten. Though one would not be liable for a capital sin. If the limb that emerged from the womb was severed only after the mother and fetus died, it is considered to be a carcass and may be eaten. So it seems that this is a case where the fetus and the mother cow or animal has both passed away. Then the question is whether or not the limb of a living animal applies in various cases. But apparently the fetus is dead at this in the beginning part. 12. If the fetus exited the mother's womb feet first, It is considered born when the majority of its body has emerged. And at that point is no longer one unit with the mother. Shogunoric Eurodea 14:3. If it came out head first, it is considered born as soon as the majority of the forehead alone has emerged from the mother, as was previously explained. So the two ways that the fetus is considered born, and then therefore it would have a separate status from the mother, would either be if it's in a normal birth head first, that the majority of the as the person looks towards the animal after it's out, what's seen is considered the foreface. And the foreface, if the majority of that is emerged, then it's considered to be born. And if it comes out feet first, then it would be at the point that the majority of the animal has emerged. That's when it's considered born. Even the minority part of the fetus, which remains in the mother's body, is also not considered part of the mother. Therefore, if a limb was cut off from the offspring at this stage of birth, it is Abrahamic and is thus forbidden to be eaten. It's Abrahamic from the fetus, or from the now considered born animal. If the offspring died during the birth process and then parts were severed from it, even the parts which remained in the mother, which are later removed during the life of the mother, are not subject to the prohibition of Abrahamic, for the dead offspring is a carcass and is therefore permitted. So once it's emerged, if the fetus is dead, and once it gets halfway to that halfway point, or once it gets to this point where it's considered born, because the fetus is dead, now the newborn baby is dead, and therefore it could be used for it would be permitted. It would not be considered a limb of the cow, of the mother cow, or the mother animal, and therefore its dead status would make it permitted to be cut up. Topic number 13. If one limb exited and was severed, and then another limb exited and was likewise severed, then the status of the meat depends on the following. A. The severed pieces constitute no more than a minority of the fetus. They are forbidden, because they are considered as Abrahamic from the mother animal, as was previously explained in the topics 10 and 11. So what it means by because it's being emerged from the animal, if half of it was cut off, then it's considered that half of it, the animal is considered born. But if they only got a couple little pieces out, then the animal is not considered born. If, however, the majority of the fetus exited and was cut off, it is considered as if it was born. Therefore, the piece of the fetus that remains in the womb, or was discharged, or was later removed from the womb, is considered to be pieces of carcass and is thus permitted. I will make a suggestion that the only way to understand this topic 13 is if the fetus that pieces are being removed from is dead. And it doesn't actually say that in topic number 13, but it's the only way this makes any sense. And so I hope that that's what that means, because otherwise I can't understand what it would mean. Though it was explained earlier in topic 1 that it is forbidden to cut off limbs from the animal. I'm sorry, topic number 14 now. Though it was explained earlier in chapter 1 that it is forbidden to cut off limbs of an animal even if one does not intend to eat it, it is nevertheless permitted to cut off limbs from a fetus to save its mother. Tiferet Israel on Mishnah Kulin 4:6. So if there's a prohibition, it's not necessarily the limb of the living animal, but rather there's a prohibition against causing suffering to animals. We're not allowed to cut a limb off a living animal for any reason, because that would be cruelty to animals. But in the case of cutting up the limb of a living animal to save the mother animal's life, it is permitted to cut up the fetus. Topic number 15. If a beast of prey ripped off and swallowed a limb from a living mammal or bird, and afterwards the injured animal escaped, but the beast of prey was killed and the limb was removed from the digestive system, the limb is still considered as a limb from a living animal and is forbidden, on the assumption that the animal whose limb was swallowed is still alive. Needless to say, this law applies if the limb was coughed out by the bird of prey. So a bird of prey attacks a squirrel. A falcon attacks a squirrel and rips its leg off. Now, it's possible. I mean, it's hard to tell unless we actually see the squirrel. But the assumption is the squirrel might still be alive. And therefore, if somehow we get a hold of that limb, either through catching the bird, slaughtering it properly, checking when you open it up, you find a limb in there, say, hey, we got a windfall. That limb is prohibited because it's assumed that the squirrel is still alive, that the animal that it was taken from is still alive. This applies only if the limb is found in its totality, even if it was cut up by the teeth of the attacker. However, the limb is found chewed up, but still has the semblance of a limb or meat. It is only forbidden for the first 24 hours of time it was swallowed. Once the limb or the meat was removed from the digestive system of the beast of prey, once the limb of meat has remained in the digestive system of the beast of prey for more than 24 hours, it is considered waste and not flesh. See Taz, Pri HaKadosh, Kariti U Paliti Uridea, end of chapter 83, and Shokanor Harav Orakaim 467-63. So if the flesh has been in the digestive system, it's after 24 hours it's changed its status. It's no longer has the status of being the limb. It's not really considered the limb now. Now it's digested food because it's been in the bird, or I suppose whatever animal it's in. It could be in a crocodile, perhaps. I assume it's the same rule. After it's been digested, and somehow they can tell, oh, this is the limb off a possibly living animal, but after it's been digested, it's permitted because it's now it's changed its status. It no longer has a status of limb. Now it has a status of digested food. The above ruling will only apply while the animal from which the limb was ripped is still alive. If, however, it died prior to the removal of the swallowed the swallowed meat from the abdomen of the beast of prey, it seems that the prohibition of Abraham Hakai no longer applies. This is because the separating of the limb is not done through a person, but rather through a beast of prey. The situation involved is after the death of the attacked victim animal, but during its life, the limb was not available. As explained in topic 3.1, the basic prohibition of eating limb during the life of the animal, the basic prohibition is eating limb during the life of the animal, but after the death, it is only a rabbinic prohibition. Therefore, it appears that for this situation, the rabbis do not make a decree to forbid it as well after it is swallowed. There is a question as to whether something that was swallowed is still considered food, or if it is immediately considered waste. Therefore, it seems that this swallowed limb is permitted. Okay, if the animal, if we see that the squirrel has died, we saw the attack, we see the squirrel has died, now the squirrel is permitted. But that limb that was eaten up by the attacking animal got a limb of the squirrel crawled off and died. The limb would not be allowed while the animal is alive, while the squirrel is alive. But now that the squirrel is dead, what was available, okay, and then we catch the falcon. We catch the animal that is digesting the limb of the squirrel. The squirrel's limb would now be permitted because the squirrel is dead. The rabbinic prohibition is against doing something that, doing this on purpose, because we're trying to game the system by cutting limbs off the living animal and then allowing the animal to die, and then the animal will be permitted. We're not allowed to game the system in that way. We're not allowed to play that kind of tricks. So the rabbinic prohibition says, okay, if a person cuts the limb of a living animal in a slaughterhouse or wherever, that limb is now prohibited. It's got the taint on it, and it's prohibited rabbinically. If the bird does it, the bird's not making a moral choice whether or not to cut limbs off the squirrel. The bird just wants to eat the squirrel. The bird would, do what birds do, or animals doing what animals do. So, and that limb is not in the human control during the death of the squirrel, during that period of time between when it was separated and now the squirrel dies. I would suggest that if a bird took it back, or an animal took it back to its lair, it gets a hold of the limb, but it's going to eat it later on. So it takes the limb. A crocodile takes it, puts it underneath, in the mud where it saves, and for eating when it gets to it. So the animal takes it back to its nest, planning to eat it. The animal is chased away or whatever. Now the limb is there. The animal's dead. It was severed while the animal's alive. The animal's dead that it was severed from. That, using the same logic, it would seem that limb that's now from a now dead animal, it was originally taken from a live animal, it's a now dead animal, that limb would be permitted for use because it was not in control. It was not done by humans, and it was not under the control of the humans. Therefore, when the human finds the limb, it should be permitted, using the same logic. And if we use the logic that about it being undigested, then it wouldn't matter if the animal came from is alive or dead, because the rule would stay the same. So that part of the digestive rule does not make a difference. The part that makes a difference in this case would be that it's not under the human control during the time between the separation and the death of the animal. Thank you.